If you've been conscious on the internet and on Twitter for the last few weeks, you might have been aware of this particular Twitter thread that made quite the discourse on Twitter. It ended up being trending on Twitter, garnering, according to the thread's author, a total of 10 million impressions in a single sitting, making it one of the most recent viral tweets of the year 2022, and not with a positive impact, let's say. But for any bystander, the Twitter thread just looks like yet another Mary Sue discourse thread that right-wingers like ER will spot all day without any solid literary authority nor evidence to sustain it. But JMAA, you say, if it's not that important, why are you talking about it? Well, I want to make this video to highlight a particular thing about this thread's author and Twitter users like him. Meet Joshua Lisec. You might not think this guy's any familiar to you, but that's okay. It's because he's not very noteworthy as an author. He claims to be a certified ghostwriter and a certified hypnotist, and he claims to have earned $1 million? Now, what's not important is this guy's tweets, because it's a usual run-of-the-mill right-wing culture war nonsense that we see on Twitter every day. No, what's important though is his Gumroad, where he sells all his literature and stuff. He tends to have a huge collection of expensive courses he sells about how to sell shit and how to grab stuff, and so on and so forth. Sometimes even indulging in nonsense hypnosis precision quackery whack, these courses even cost up to $400? Yes, he is in for the grift, he's in for the fucking money, and if I were to cover each and every one of his individual courses, I'd be here for an eternity. But something really caught my eye. A piece of literary fiction, in fact, called Level Up or Die, a lit RPG steampunk adventure. Don't get yourself fooled by the lit RPG thing in the cover. This is definitely not one of those choose your own adventure books from the 90s. Blunt, fast-moving, entertaining, claims Circus reviews, a book review website I never heard of before. To tear down the system, he's got to level up. Come on. The synopsis is not far from utterly equally delusional, with right-wing terms such as media circus or People's Republic or California. This latter are nearly mistaken for New California Republic from Fallout New Vegas. But maybe that's just me either being silly or either petroleum Mojave makes me wish for a nuclear winter. Fans of Ready Player One and Sword Art Online will love Level Up or Die. Funny that I remember stuff like Sword Art Online being the worst anime in town. If you read the Circus Review's review, it's more likely to just be a shell for the book majorly composed of a very basic synopsis. Pretty sussy. The only problem is, if you die in the games, you die in real life. Oh dear Jim Flynn, if it's a overused narrative trope of if you die in the video game, you die in real life, Lamau. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's where the inspiration on Sword Art Online goes around. Okay, so why am I seriously covering this book? Why am I wasting my time with this so much to make a video on it? Well, it's a fact that Joshua here is acting like a sort of literary authority on whether a narrative character is a Mary Sue or not, judging from his most viral Twitter thread. It certainly made him a really good impression, since when I bought this book the day after I got his email claiming how this post went so fucking viral and successful. I have published a now infamous Twitter thread analyzing one-dimensional heroines in popular media, what those critics get wrong about the hero's journey, and how to write compelling fiction. At the time, the thread questioned over 141,000 views and began to die down. Then the haters found it, and then the thread got 10 million views. Yeah, sure, everyone was making fun of you, but you can surely pat yourself on the back. The thread went mega viral, becoming the #1 story on multiple Twitter trending categories and the top story overall, second only to live sports updates. There were media hit pieces, TMZ, MSN, Fox affiliate channels, and activist blogs, which of course made shit up about me. They call them fake news for a reason. There were even death threats. So I may come as a surprise to you that this was all so much fun. Holy fucking Jesus, man, get down your high horse. I spent $3 on this particular book on Gumroad, and now he's going all ballistic about how he's gonna super successful and mega viral and all that. Now, and how he's having so much fun. But, you know, as a literary authority on telling me whether a character in fiction is deserving or it might a SUE title, I should expect you to not have a complete Mary Sue character in your fiction writing, right? So that's the main reason why I'm analyzing and reviewing Level Up or Die. I basically read it so you don't have to. But please, I only had one choice of wasting $3 on this atrocious book. I want my money back. So let's get on with it. Donovan Riley, you have been found guilty of manslaughter. My half of the judge pauses for dramatic effect. The crusty-eyed mouth breath is back in the stadium, sits wheeze and applaud. Shame they don't sell popcorn, they make a killing. Wow, bravo, wow. Only what, 4 lines in? And the book is packing with a pair of obnoxious balls. So, to put it into perspective of what's this all about, we're all situated in the People's Republic of California, where a media circus of a kangaroo court against Donovan Riley is held, accusing him of manslaughter according to the presumably fat judge. Every time I read this, I picture the judge from Pink Floyd's The Wall trial scene.
Good morning, Your Honor!
This is an ongoing back and forth for the protagonist insults towards the judge and the judges and jury's accusations and all, which can be summed up as the delusions of a culture warrior. Later on, Donovan goes on to call the judge a bloated warthog with the shock of the audience. First manslaughter, now fat phobia, the judge's eyes bulge. This fucking line killed me. It's currently happening. The author of this book, Joshua Lisec, has such a deranged view on California alone that he has to make this constant boogeyman of politically correct culture war nonsense that most right-wingers peddle. So, with his mother and sister in the verge of tears, he gets sentenced to being stripped of all constitutional rights and to the games. What are the games, you say? To put it simply, it's like a weird mix-up of the virtual world of Sword Art Online or World of Warcraft and the old-fashioned gladiator games from ancient Rome. So much fun! Since there's also this sort of purple neon bikini AI computer girl for some reason called Rachel Justice. Fuck. Congratulations, defendant, Rachel says. You've been just sentenced to a thrilling adventure in God's Staircase, the newest correctional tower game brought to you by Cryoband Corporation. Inside, you'll discover adventures untold. Just be careful not to get hooked. You just might stay there for life. Tower game. How does that sound so familiar? The guards stop at an open black container. Its hexagonal length will slide right into one of those honeycomb holes. We're close enough to the pit's edge that I can see hundreds, maybe thousands of other containers lying inside those holes. Wait, you're stuffing me in that coughing thing and shoving me into that wall with all those other people? This is your cell, kid, a balding guard says. A short ride into the digital world. 2 women in white coats approached us from the side. Everything ready? The same guard asked to a lab coat lady with horn-rimmed glasses. She's middle-aged, olive skin, and smoking hot. Joshua never got laid. The whole world is black. In my panic, I wonder if someone screwed with the immersion software. Is this gonna be my sentence? Just endless silence in a hall? The dialog box opens before my eyes with a flashing cursor. Enter username. Oh, I got your username right here. My judge was a hog. Not valid. Usernames may not insult the People's Republic of California party members. I don't think I acts like a grounded kid towards his fucking mom. Screw you. Not valid. Usernames may not display an aggression toward the viewing audience. Seriously, let a guy express himself a little and I'll think it over. He ends up calling himself Broken Chains. Yeah, I know. Crawling in my skin. He pops up falling from the stratosphere as Rachel pops in her bodacious bikini glory, explaining that he has to climb all the steps on the huge tower in the background to set free himself and his whole server. Her digital boobs give a dramatic bounce. Her boobs wobble again as she ponders, another mindless stare. Her tits wiggle in perfect time with her eyebrows. Yup, whoever wrote this book never got laid. After Rachel leaves with just one jiggling boob, Donovan or Broken Chains lands safe and sound sort of into the ground before meeting a bunch of player thugs like Bloodbed Booty or Feared Stumper who attempt to rob him of his starting goods. There's a fight going on in a confusing and fast pace of riding until a guy by the name of Perfect Blade saves the level 1 Broken Chains from the thugs and Chocolate Reaper, who I might assume is the antagonist the book will refer to later. Perfect Blade then suggests Broken Chains to level up just enough to defend himself, to which he spends a good bunch of chapters giving exposition about how the game works, doing a quest to kill 20 goblins, and going to the forest to kill said goblins in a group with Broken Chains. The combat is detailed in such a confusing and brief way that I can easily get lost, and from time to time there are these inserts of level up prompts that Broken Chains has every time he levels up, which feel unnecessary for the most part, when you just basically sum it up narratively as the guy level up a lot. Doesn't help that things like dialogues or flavor text are so badly mixed with the narration of the story, so sometimes I feel it's hard to decipher who said what in a conversation. Do monsters always explode into glass? Everything that dies, monsters leave red glass, players leave green. No one's seen an NPC's death color yet. The devs made them tough to kill. Ah yes, characters from a game exploding into shiny shards of glass when dying. I wonder when I didn't see that before. So, after Broken Chains levels up a bit more from killing all those 20 goblins, Perfect Blade suggests Chains should join his guild. Chains refuses, and both separate in the end before Chains going into a tavern to sleep it over. There's a confusing wartime flashback from the Second American Civil War or something, where the novel directly assumes Batley will already know Donovan and his surroundings, and then immediately Batley cuts into the segment where Donovan drops his groceries and runs into his sister's bedroom while she's screaming before waking up in the game. Funny how is this all due hearing the rhythmic smacking of meat. Nothing like the sexual frustrations of the author shining through the writings. Also funny how in the beginning of the flashback the author mentions the People's Republic of California, or PRC, lower the age of consent to 14. I start imagining this book is more the political reflection of the original author, more than it's a work of simple fiction, but maybe I'm just silly because patrolling the Mojave makes me wish for a nuclear winter. Another problem I have with this literature is that the pacing is all over the place, and not in a good way. Like, a lot of times it's confusing and it goes too fast to be able for me to catch up. This is just like the book tries to be narratively a video game. Look, if I wanted to play a video game, I not just read a video game. I just play a video game. I get that I didn't expect anything from like Cervantes or Shakespeare in here, but the writing spacing is just so bad and cringe that I just want to finish this book entirely already. He wakes up, shops some armor and weapon upgrades, goes off to kill some more goblins in an extremely detailed combat narration, and then hears a woman screaming, goes here and she's being attacked by player thugs, including our dreaded Chocolate Reaper. Again, notice how he also does have these intertwined flashbacks about him and his dad in between normal narrative, which pacing sounds like I'm just watching a certain anime. Another extremely detailed combat scene where one of the good girls gets murdered and Chocolate Reaper and company flee in the end, only to see Perfect come back. After a cringe-worthy back and forth between Chains and the rest of the so-called Knights of the Golden Dawn, he finally decides to join that guild, hence Perfect's guild. Seems like a bit funny that the guild is named after the same Golden Dawn that's actually a white supremacist group in Greece, but I don't know, maybe this is a tiny unfortunate coincidence. The violence in all this are called the cutthroats, by the way, and I can really help but notice a part in our story's protagonist. I mean, he's a badass mean dude who comes back alive out of every situation. Every person who doesn't like him is treated like a one-dimensional villain. Saves girls and has the attitude of a Shadow the Hedgehog Deminor OC. I wouldn't want to accuse this character made by Joshua Lisec of being a male Mary Sue, but you know, he meets some really funky names like Pussy Slayer, a name so silly that the characters around him roll their eyes back, I presume. There's this whole load of back and forth dialogue fluff just to basically agree on the Golden Dawn's first mission, to complete the first dungeon and kill the first boss. Yeah, the plot is going as intended, just as shit should be. Take note that the novel takes this kind of serious anime-esque tone compared to the first 2 chapters of this book, which feature some of the most bombastic settings possible, such as a big titty purple AI woman with jiggling boobs. Lack of coherency, especially trying to be serious with names like Pussy Slayer, Rain Pig, or Squirrel of Death. Seriously, Squirrel of Death? I've seen anti-woke culture war nerds on YouTube with better names, Mr. Heel versus Babyface. Most of the following chapters is useless combat and narrative fluff. They fight a bunch of skeletons. Chains grabs a bone club that expires on leaving the dungeon for some reason too. They fight some steampunk bots. They compare each other's levels. They get into a sewer to fight something I completely missed because this chapter is filled with so much dialogue fluff I get easily lost. And then they leave the dungeon back into the town because they've been there 6 days straight in the dark doing nothing. They'll go on with some exposition dialogue I cannot bother to care because it doesn't seem like Chains is a very talkative person, and then Slayer gets taken by cutthroats. They are forced to get into the dungeon again, this time with the help of a shining pet rabbit that Kurt kept to herself for some reason. I have the deep feeling they're really liking this game, even though it's their prison sentence. Oh wow, I completely forgot this was a prison sentence. Tell me, who was the Warthog judge again?
Good morning, the world!
They come across with the idea of aggroing a bunch of monsters against the cutthroats, and they save Slayer. More filler combat text. That he then has a near failure experience where he has another awkward flashback of his dad, and then a Deus Ex Machina moment happens when all of a sudden 100,000 viewers are watching now. Nobody told me this far into the book anybody was watching this whole thing unfold. All of a sudden, though, Chains becomes a killing machine and defeats the monsters and the cutthroats all by himself. I'm definitely not suspecting a SUE here. So much fun! They keep fucking fighting in all this sort of fluff text. And you know, I'd explain in full detail what exactly is going on in here, getting constantly bombarded with bots and cutthroats, but nearly all of this crap is more of the fucking same shit. He gives alongside battling robots the dead wall, where he finds the names of the people who were just killed there, and yes, nearly everyone important but him is dead now, but it was all a dream. Hi, I see you're trying to make coherent narration. Would you like me to help? Fuck you, bro, you're just jealous. After the first signs of character conflict, Chains and Heart presumably get to fight some more robots and skeletons. 3 paces away, a skeleton creeps up on the buxom gunner. Are you sure that isn't a way to say she's got huge tits? But then Perfect betrays them after the first glaring red flags that I saw miles away, and turns out Perfect was the leader of the cutthroats. Oh no, such drama, very bad. Some more fluff and they escape. The next chapter is just an excuse to put up more useless drama so we have an excuse to relate to the main character's trauma with his dad. They make it back into the town, but nobody gets in the end because they've been probably following marked. This dream sequence is just lazy and shit. It's a long night of troubled dreams, mostly fighting monsters in an endless tunnel. The tunnel turns into a dark hallway with a lit doorway in the far end. A woman screams on the other side. When I shove open the door, Squirrel jumps at me with blood running down his white face. My sword is stuck without his skull. It hurts, Chains, he cries. Make it stop. I wake screaming in the dark forest. Someone is squeezing me. I try to fight, but Heart's voice crashes through my terror. It's okay, Chains. It's alright. You're safe. What? More dramatic exposition happens, and look, I just don't give a shit, okay? Yeah, okay, Heart's husband has been killed by intruders, and she killed him, blah blah. I'm not personally invested in the writings of a drunken bigot. It seems like we got a romance between Chains and Heart in here, except it doesn't look like it because Joshua, the author, is so wishy-washy about lingering at the edge of, I don't want to make it look like a romance because I'm a hardcore Christian. Broken Chains is now level 62, surprisingly, and because there was no embedding level up text in the between the narrative for all this long. So they begin chasing not just after Perfect, but also after the first boss by just going through the front wall. To fight some more robots and shit, they have another confrontation with Perfect, presumably. The cops are too busy posting social media to handle real crime. You want to survive as a business, gotta get used to fighting off thieves yourself.
These are not the political ramblings of a madman.
They fight a bunch of spiders, they rescue a bunch, Chase learns to be a merchant for some reason, they meet Perfect at the town gates again. Are you sure you didn't watch too much Sword Art Online, Joshua? They open a shop, they pay off DLC with Donovan's mother's bank account. Isn't he too old for using mommy's credit card now? Oh wait. They grind some more spiders so they can get some more loot so they can sell it in the chain store with little to no luck. They sleep over, head over into the dungeon, meet Perfect again. I swear the pacing on this is so shit. So fucking shit. Chase fucks Chocolate Reaper once more in a fight that spans for a too lengthy bulk of text. The Copperhoots and Perfect alongside Reaper escape again. It's like my favorite anime. Chapter 25 is probably the shortest next to chapter 1 so far. So they reach the top of the tower and they fight off the boss, which is a giant spider. And let me tell you, this chapter is freaking long. They defeat the first boss, big shocker, and they end up in a sort of cliffhanger where they continue on with the game. And the epilogue is just a second pointless cliffhanger that he tries to sell you the second volume. Hi, I don't think we're properly introduced. My name is... What the fuck are you on about? No, seriously, is that it? Are you going to end this book in the shittiest of cliffhangers just to sell me the second volume of this shit? It's not just enough by just ripping off Sword Art Online with this. Oh no, you also have to mount a fucking mountain of grift to be able to try to continue with this. It's not just that either. A fistful of the first pages of this book is just basically Joshua Lisec self-filleting himself with shilling his 80-20 method shit, his other gumroad courses, and having people suck his dick with reviews even before the actual book was published. The final pages are more the same, self-filleting and shilling his own shit. You got 11 millions of views of your very SUE tweet, so a few handful of people could buy your stupid book, myself included, to read about your own Mary Sue character in your own book. All that trouble for a tiny bit of clout and money. So, what is the point of me reviewing this thing? Well, Joshua Lisec is not the only one exclusive to this sort of problem. As the old saying goes, it's easier to be the critic than the creator. And a lot of right-wing pundits go easily on criticizing female characters for being Mary Sue's and on the sword all they want, while their work is just plainly sucks. It's just my way of telling to not trust these people as the literary authority on how to write fiction, because like Joshua here, they're really fucking terrible at writing fiction. Joshua's book is so boring, full of filler, with awful pacing and full of so much unoriginal shit that you could just watch Sword Art Online instead, or hell, play an actual video game instead. I can understand juvenile books aimed at a teenage audience that could easily pass off anything like this, but it doesn't mean books like this are good. I'm not asking for Tolkien or Shakespeare, but at least I'm expecting someone competent who isn't just ripping off an isekai anime, or for Jim Flynn's sake. The irony of all of this is that in this book, Donovan, or Broken Chains, qualifies perfectly as the very definition of Mary Sue Joshua Lisec is clearly against. His use of the Mary Sue criticism is just because he can't tolerate strong independent women in media, or women in media in general, just like any other right-wing grifters like him. I can only hope I never read any of his works ever again, nor have to interact with this clown ever again, because bottom down, he's troublemaking for the sake of clout, or having a mega viral tweet for the sake of earning money through persuasion might just be that, a trivial pursuit.
Burger King.